You were raised to believe the world is fair. They dressed you in the clothes of politeness, taught you to sit down, wait your turn, speak moderately, and know when to bow your head. They clapped when you were obedient, rewarded you when you were compliant, and praised you when you sacrificed yourself to keep the peace. And all of this they called virtue. But beneath the smiles, the compliments, the handshakes, this world is not a moral school. It is a battlefield, and you have been trained to be a sheep. Sheep are predictable. They are gentle. They follow the herd. They feel grateful for being guided, and they remain docile even as they are herded toward the cliff. Sheep don't ask questions. Sheep only obey. And so did you. You learned how to agree, how to stay silent, and how to smile at the right time so you wouldn't be seen as troublesome. But have you ever asked yourself, why does this society celebrate obedience and not strength? Why is ambition branded as arrogance, power condemned as evil, and control, both over yourself and over others, labeled immoral? The answer lies here. If you ever discovered the truth, that this world is not run by sheep, but ruled by wolves, you would become a threat. And those who profit from your obedience cannot allow that to happen. Machiavelli saw this truth more than 500 years ago. He didn't write The Prince to comfort the masses. He wrote it for the predator hiding among the herd. He understood that to survive, you must be feared. To win, you must be unpredictable. To rule, you must become the wolf. And that raw truth still holds today. If you are exhausted from being manipulated, from always playing the compliant role, from being dismissed even though you know you carry much more within you, then this is the moment you need to hear. This video is not here to make you comfortable, but to wake you. This is not a sermon on morality, it is a map of power. And if you are brave enough to keep listening, you will learn the laws of the predator. But be careful. When you reach the end, you will hear things that will change the way you see others and yourself forever. Once you see the fangs of the wolf, you cannot return to being sheep. The only question is, are you ready to step into this initiation? You cannot walk into this world and declare yourself powerful. Anyone who does that only paints a target on their back. People are not afraid of a roar. They are afraid of silence. They cannot read. Machiavelli understood this well. True strength does not lie in display, but in the ability to be underestimated. This is the first law of the wolf, the law of disguise. Disguise is not pretending forever. It is the phase where you learn to blend into the herd, not to become them, but to study them. When you wear the same clothes, speak the same language, smile the same smile, you make others believe you are harmless, and within that illusion of safety, you gain the space to train, to gather, to prepare. The weak always crave attention, desperate to prove themselves immediately. The strong are the opposite. They are patient. They allow themselves to be underestimated, mocked, and dismissed as insignificant. And every small detail they observe, who trembles at threat, who envies another's success, who only follows the crowd, becomes data. Every glance, every reaction, every careless confession becomes a weapon stored for later. In Machiavelli's eyes, this is not cowardice. It is a survival strategy. Because when you reveal your sharpness too soon, you make yourself the hunted. Sheep have no fangs, but they have numbers. They will trample you with collective fear. On the other hand, if you know how to disguise yourself, when to retreat, and when to remain silent, you become a shadow no one can predict. And nothing is more terrifying than a figure who cannot be read. You might think, But isn't this just living dishonestly? The truth is, society is already a stage, and everyone is performing. The only difference is this: they perform to be accepted, while you disguise yourself to observe and to control. One is the victim of the game. The other is learning how to rewrite the rules. Remember, the fox never lunges immediately. It watches, it waits, it smiles. Disguise is not about forgetting your true nature, but protecting it until the day it is strong enough to emerge. The death of any strategy never comes from being hated. It comes from being exposed too soon. So if you want to move from sheep to wolf, you must learn patience behind the mask. Let others believe you are like them, while inside you sharpen your fangs each day. Disguise is only the first step. The wolf does not live forever as a sheep, and the fox does not stop at observation. At some point, you must enter the second phase, predation. But Machiavelli reminds us that predation does not mean roaring, chasing, or waging open war. Those who do that kill themselves with their own noise. The true art of predation is control from within, guiding the prey toward your path while letting them believe it was their choice all along. Watch a flock of sheep. When pressed, they scatter chaotically. But when steered with skill, they march in line, docile, through the opening prepared for them. This is the principle of hidden power. You do not need to crush. You only need to create the illusion of choice. Let them believe the idea was theirs, while you've already laid out every step. Machiavelli knew the greatest power is not found on the throne, but behind it. People scramble for the spotlight, while the true wolf sits in the shadows, whispering, pulling invisible strings. At work, this is the person who doesn't hold the highest title, but ensures every decision passes through their hands. In relationships, it is the one who never needs to raise their voice, but is always heard. In life, it is the one who knows when to touch and when to withdraw, so others willingly hand over control. The weak chase power through titles. The strong create power through influence. And influence is not born from noise. It comes from reading the psychology of the crowd. Who needs praise? Who craves importance? Who fears abandonment? When you feed them exactly what they hunger for, they become willing pawns. They believe you are following them, when in truth they are walking straight onto your board. Do not mistake this for cruelty. It is the essence of every power game. The people you've seen rise to the top are not always the smartest, but they all know how to hunt without leaving tracks. They make their rivals feel safe, and when the moment comes, one move is enough to collapse everything. Predation is not about fighting for scraps. It is about directing the entire feast, leaving everyone convinced they have won, while the true spoils rest in your hands. That is the strength of the real wolf. A sharp sword, if swung too early, is nothing more than a meaningless cut, but drawn at the right moment, it can change the entire game. That is why Machiavelli always insisted, power is not only about strategy, it is about timing. In nature, the wolf never chases every movement. It waits, it observes. It allows the prey to feel safe. When the flock relaxes, when no one is watching, when all believe there is no threat, that is when the fangs strike. One decisive bite replaces dozens of frantic pursuits. So it is in life. The weak are impulsive. They feel insulted and lash out immediately, see an opportunity and rush headlong, spot an opening in a rival and attack too soon. But that haste is like shouting in a marketplace. Everyone sees, everyone braces, and every advantage evaporates in a single breath. The one who waits, on the other hand, convinces the world they've already given up. And in that silence, they accumulate strength. Look around. How many have failed not because they lacked ability, but because they couldn't resist impatience? How many expose their ambitions too early, only to be trampled by the herd? The crowd may lack fangs, but its collective fear can crush any lone challenger. This is why Machiavelli advised, do not reveal yourself too soon. Let others believe you are weak, predictable, just one of them. And within that illusion, you gain the time to prepare the blow no one can withstand. Timing doubles power. A mediocre move, delivered at the perfect moment, can dismantle a brilliant plan unleashed too early. You don't need to be the fastest, nor the most skilled. You only need to arrive when others have dropped their guard. But waiting is not the same as passivity. It is an active discipline. You observe, you analyze, you memorize every sign. When your opponent grows arrogant, when the crowd loses focus, when the ruler falls asleep in false security, that is when cracks appear in the wall, and one precise strike at a small crack can bring the whole fortress down. What keeps most people from ever holding power is not lack of intelligence, but their inability to endure waiting. Silence feels like death to them. But for the wolf, silence is life. Silence is the time when fangs grow sharper, eyes see farther, and endurance outlasts every prey. The world will test you with provocation, taunts, tempting opportunities, doors that open too early. The weak will rush in. The strong will pause, smile, and let everyone believe they've walked away. And then, one day, when no one expects it, they strike once, and everything ends. This is the law of timing. Strength alone does not win. Only those who know when to stay silent and when to strike true. Even the sharpest predator cannot walk alone forever. In the wild, hunters move in packs. In society, you too will need allies. But Machiavelli warned, the greatest mistake is confusing closeness with loyalty. The moment you believe someone would never betray you is the exact moment you've placed the knife in their hand. You've seen this before. A colleague who once seemed supportive is the first to push you down when a promotion appears. A friend who swore they would always be there vanishes without explanation the moment interests shift. Not because they are unusually wicked, but because human nature changes when incentives change. Society glorifies eternal friendship, absolute loyalty. But Machiavelli looks straight at the truth. These things exist only when they are never tested. People are kind while they still need you, cold when you are no longer useful, loyal while you hold power, and quick to turn away when they glimpse a greater opportunity. This is not the exception. It is a survival instinct. And if you fail to understand this, your naive expectations will crush you. The wise do not build alliances for love, but for use, not out of cruelty, but out of realism. Loyalty is not fixed. It is currency that fluctuates. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous." If you accept this, you will stop giving blind trust and begin learning how to cultivate dependence. True power does not come from being loved, but from making others realize they cannot live without you. At work, if you hold the skills or information others need, they are forced to maintain ties with you. In relationships, if you remain self-sufficient, your partner respects you more because they know you are not dependent on them. This is the only form of loyalty you can trust. Loyalty born from fear of loss. But never forget, every embrace may hide a fracture. Every gift can be a bribe. Every compliment can be a trap. Machiavelli did not advocate blind paranoia, but he urged constant vigilance. Observe your allies as closely as you observe your enemies, and when you see signs of discontent, do not wait for them to grow. A small crack left unattended can bring down the entire wall. Remember, alliances are tools, not sanctuaries. Keep them close, but never let them see the whole board. Let them believe they matter, but never let anyone become irreplaceable. In the game of power, the one who cannot be replaced is always the most dangerous player in the game. Every seeker of power must face a single question. Is it better to be loved or to be feared? The naive choose love because it sounds noble, it sounds humane. But Machiavelli coldly pointed out, love is fragile, fear endures. You've seen this already. A colleague admires you when you help them finish a project, but the moment you refuse, that admiration disappears. A partner may praise you when everything runs smoothly, but the instant you fail to meet their needs, their adoration quickly turns into blame. Love and affection are tied to benefit. Remove the benefit, and love evaporates. Fear is different. Fear creates distance. It makes people hesitate before betraying you, think twice before slandering you, and measure carefully before attempting to harm you. Love draws people closer. Fear keeps them at a safe distance. And it is that distance that protects you. But Machiavelli did not advise becoming a reckless tyrant. He stressed, sow fear with measure. Never push people into despair, where rebellion is their only option. The most effective fear does not come from constant threats, but from reputation and decisive action. Punish betrayal once, and the story spreads on its own. From then on, you don't need to repeat yourself. Remember, true reverence does not come from declaring, I am strong, but from the moments you are silent and others still tread carefully. When your name is mentioned and the room grows quiet, when rivals don't dare dismiss you even in your absence, that is when fear is working on your behalf. In a world where love can shift overnight, fear is the only armor that lasts. It does not need daily nurturing. It does not depend on endless kindness. It only needs to be sown once, and it lives forever in memory. Machiavelli was clear. To be loved is fragile. To be feared is permanent. And if you are forced to choose fear. Winning once may make you stand out for a moment. But if you want to be remembered, you must leave behind something else. A legacy. Machiavelli never taught you to become a victor who fades back into the crowd. He taught you how to become a symbol, and symbols last longer than any individual. Think of the powerful throughout history. People don't remember them for their kindness, but for their ruthlessness, their resolve, or at the very least, the haunting impression they left behind. A king may die, but the story of how he once dealt with a traitor will be told for generations. A businessman may retire, but the way he once shifted an entire market with a single bold decision will become a lesson no one forgets. It works the same in everyday life. You may leave a job, but your colleagues will remember the moment you stood up against being exploited, and from then on, no one dares to underestimate you. You may walk away from a relationship, but the other person will always remember the silence with which you left, and the void they could never fill again. Legacy is not what you carry with you. It is what you leave imprinted in the memory of others. Machiavelli emphasized, legacy is not built on chaos. The excessively brutal die quickly, and the overly flamboyant are swiftly removed. The strongest legacy is built on a balance of presence and absence. You don't need to appear all the time. You only need to appear at the right time. And when you vanish, it is the emptiness itself that forces others to imagine, to fear, and to act according to what they believe you might do. The wise understand that mystery carries more power than declarations. When people are unsure of your intentions, they begin to imagine the worst. and their imagination is often harsher than any action you could ever take. This is why many leaders need only remain silent, and that silence alone is enough to keep others from crossing the line. Notice how the crowd always seeks a figure to cling to. If you do not become the symbol of strength, you will inevitably be turned into the symbol of weakness. History and society never leave a vacuum. They are always written by those bold enough to leave a mark. And you don't need to conquer the entire world. You only need to strike deeply in the right circle at the right time. One decisive blow, one uncompromising decision, one punishment carried to its end. These are the things that create rumors and legends that outlast every act of kindness. The legacy of the predator is not that everyone loves him. On the contrary, many may despise him. But hatred is also a form of remembrance. Fear is also a form of respect. And when you are gone, what matters is not the number of hands that once applauded you, but the number of people who dare not forget your name. That is immortality in the game of power. Not living forever in flesh, but living forever in memory, in caution. In the stories people continue to tell about you. You have now heard the laws of the game Machiavelli laid bare. You have seen why the crowd will always be sheep, why the wise must know how to disguise themselves like the fox, and why only the wolf earns true respect. The question is no longer, is this world cruel, but which role will you stand in within this game? If you continue to believe that kindness will protect you, you will always be exploited. If you believe that love and affection are the foundations of survival, you will soon be disillusioned. You will be forgotten, trampled, and left wondering why you are always the one who loses. But if you are clear-eyed enough to face reality, if you know when to remain silent, when to wait, when to sow fear instead of chasing love, you will rewrite your destiny. For the one who is truly respected is not the one everyone likes, but the one no one dares to dismiss. You do not need to be loud. You do not need to be loved. You only need to walk into a room and let the silence that follows you speak on your behalf. When even your enemies tread carefully at the sound of your name, that is when you know you have escaped the herd. You have become the wolf.